Welcome aboard, fellow enthusiasts, as we embark on another incredible video. Welcome, friends, to our video dedicated to Islamic calendar. Let's dive right in and uncover its wonders. The Hijri calendar, also known in English as the Muslim calendar and Islamic calendar, is a lunar calendar consisting of 12 lunar months in a year of 354 or 355 days. It is used to determine the proper days of Islamic holidays and rituals, such as the annual fasting and the annual season for the Great Pilgrimage. In almost all countries where the predominant religion is Islam, the civil calendar is the Gregorian calendar, with Syriac month names used in the Levant and Mesopotamia, Iraq, Syria, Jordan, Lebanon and Palestine, but the religious calendar is the Hijri one. This calendar enumerates the Hijri era, whose epoch was established as the Islamic New Year in 622 CE. During that year, Muhammad and his followers migrated from Mecca to Medina and established the first Muslim community ummah, an event commemorated as the Hijrah. In the West, dates in this era are usually denoted AH. In Muslim countries, it is also sometimes denoted as H from its Arabic form, abbreviated. In English, years prior to the Hijra are denoted as BH before the Hijra. Since 19 July 2023 CE. In the Gregorian calendar reckoning, 1445 AH runs from 19 July 2023 to approximately 7 July 2024. Now, let's dig deeper into pre-Islamic calendar and unveil the hidden treasures it holds within. For Central Arabia, especially Mecca, there is a lack of epigraphical evidence, but details are found in the writings of Muslim authors of the Abbasid era. Inscriptions of the ancient South Arabian calendars reveal the use of a number of local calendars. At least some of these South Arabian calendars followed the lunisolar system. Both al-Biruni and al-Mashu'i suggest that the ancient Arabs used the same month names as the Muslims, though they also record other month names used by the pre-Islamic Arabs. The Islamic tradition is unanimous in stating that Arabs of Shama, Hijaz, and not distinguished between two types of months, permitted al and forbidden al months. The forbidden months were 4 months during which fighting is forbidden, listed as Rajab, and the 3 months around the pilgrimage season, Du al-Qadr, Du al-Hayya, and Muharram. A similar if not identical concept to the forbidden months is also attested by Procopius, where he describes an armistice that the Eastern Arabs of the Lakhmid al-Mundhir respected for 2 months in the summer solstice of 541 CE. However, Muslim historians do not link these months to a particular season. The Quran links the 4 forbidden months with Nas, a word that literally means postponement. According to Muslim tradition, the decision of postponement was administered by the tribe of Kinana, by a man known as the Al-Kalamas of Kinana and his descendants Pul. Kalwisa. Different interpretations of the concept of Nas have been proposed. Some scholars, both Muslim and Western, maintain that the pre-Islamic calendar used in Central Arabia was a purely lunar calendar similar to the modern Islamic calendar. According to this view, Nas is related to the pre-Islamic practices of the Meccan Arabs, where they would alter the distribution of the forbidden months within a given year without implying a calendar manipulation. This interpretation is supported by Arab historians and lexicographers like Ibn Hisham, Ibn Manzur, and the corpus of Qazanic exegesis. This is corroborated by an early Syriac inscription, where a religious ritual was postponed due to war. According to the context of this inscription, the verb has nothing to do with intercalation, but only with moving religious events within the calendar itself. The similarity between the religious concept of this ancient inscription and the Quran suggests that non-calendaring postponement is also the Qazanic meaning of Nas. The Encyclopedia of Islam concludes the Arabic system of can only have been intended to move the Hajj and the fairs associated with it in the vicinity of Mecca to a suitable season of the year. It was not intended to establish a fixed calendar to be generally observed. The term fixed calendar is generally understood to refer to the non-intercalated calendar. Others concur that it was originally a lunar calendar, but suggest that about 200 years before the Hijra it was transformed into a lunisolar calendar containing an intercalary month added from time to keep the pilgrimage within the season of the year when merchandise was most abundant. This interpretation was first proposed by the medieval Muslim astrologer and astronomer Abu Mashar al-Balkhi, and later by al-Biruni, al-Mashudi, and some Western scholars. This interpretation considers Nas to be a synonym to the Arabic word for intercalation kubsa. The Arabs, according to one explanation mentioned by Abu Mashar, learned of this type of intercalation from the Jews. The Jewish Nasi was the official who decided when to intercalate the Jewish calendar. Some sources say that the Arabs followed the Jewish practice and intercalate 7 months over 19 years, or else that they intercalate 9 months over 24 years. There is, however, no consensus among scholars on this issue. Now, we shift our focus to prohibiting Nas, a topic that deserves our attention. Nasi is interpreted to signify either the postponement of the pre-Islamic month of Hajj, or the also pre-Islamic practice of intercalation, periodic insertion of an additional month to reset the calendar into accordance with the seasons. In the 10th year of the Hijrah, as documented in the Kazan Shura at Tobar, Muslims believe God revealed the prohibition of the Nas. The prohibition of Nas would presumably have been announced when the intercalated month had returned to its position just before the month of Nasi began. If Nas meant intercalation, then the number and the position of the intercalary months between AH1 and AH10 are uncertain. Western calendar dates commonly cited for key events in early Islam such as the Hijra, the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, and the Battle of the Trench should be viewed with caution, as they might be in error by 1, 2, 3 or even 4 lunar months. This prohibition was mentioned by Muhammad during the farewell sermon, which was delivered on 9 Dhu al-Hijjah AH10 Julian date Friday 6 March 632 CE on Mount Arafat during the farewell pilgrimage to Mecca. The 3 successive sacred forbidden months mentioned by Muhammad, months in which battles are forbidden, are Dhu al-Qa'dah, Dhu al-Hijjah, and Muharram, months 11, 12, and 1 respectively. The single forbidden month is Rajab, month 7. These months were considered forbidden both within the new Islamic calendar and within the old pagan Meccan calendar. As we enter this new phase, let's navigate the complexities of days of the week and discover its practical applications. Traditionally, the Islamic day begins at sunset and ends at the next sunset. Each Islamic day thus begins at nightfall and ends at the end of daylight. The days in the 7-day week are, with the exception of the last 2 days, named after their ordinal place in the week. On the 6th day of the week, the gathering day, Muslims assemble for the Friday prayer at a local mosque at noon. The gathering day is often regarded as the weekly day off. This is frequently made official, with many Muslim countries adopting Friday and Saturday, e.g., Egypt, Saudi Arabia, or Thursday and Friday as official weekends, during which offices are closed. Other countries, e.g., Iran, choose to make Friday alone a day of rest. A few others, e.g., Turkey, Pakistan, Morocco, Nigeria, Malaysia, have adopted the Saturday-Sunday weekend while making Friday a working day with a long midday break to allow time off for worship. In this part of the video, we'll be delving deeper into months and analyzing its key components. Each month of the Islamic calendar commences on the birth of the new lunar cycle. Traditionally, this is based on actual observation of the moon's crescent marking the end of the previous lunar cycle and hence the previous month, thereby beginning the new month. Consequently, each month can have 29 or 30 days depending on the visibility of the moon, astronomical positioning of the earth and weather conditions. 4 of the 12 Hijri months are considered sacred, 7, and the 3 consecutive months of 11, 12, and 1. In this segment, we'll be unraveling the complexities of length of year and exploring its multifaceted nature. The mean duration of a tropical year is 365.24 to 19 days, while the long-term average duration of a synodic month is 29.5305879881 days. Thus, the average lunar year 12 new moons is 10.87513 days shorter than the average solar year 365.24 to 191229.5305879881, causing months of the Hijri calendar to advance about 11 days earlier each year relative to the equinoxes. As a result, says the Astronomical Almanac, the cycle of 12 lunar months regresses through the seasons over a period of about 33 years. Now, let's shift our focus to year numbering and embark on an intellectual exploration of its various dimensions. In pre-Islamic Arabia, it was customary to identify a year after a major event which took place in it. Thus, according to Islamic tradition, Abraham, governor of Yemen, then a province of the Christian kingdom of Aksum of northeast Africa and South Arabia, attempted to destroy the Kaaba with an army which included several elephants. The raid was unsuccessful, but that year became known as the Year of the Elephant, during which Muhammad was born Shura al-Fil. Most equate this to the year 570 CE, but a minority use 571 CE. The first 10 years of the Hijra were not numbered, but were named after events in the life of Muhammad according to al-Biruni. 1. The year of permission. 2. The year of the order of fighting. 3. The year of the trial. 4. The year of congratulation on marriage. 5. The year of the earthquake. 6. The year of enquiring. 7. The year of gaining victory. 8. The year of equality. 9. The year of exemption. 10. The year of farewell. In 17 AH, Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, one of the officials of the Rashid Caliph Umar in Basra, complained about the absence of any years on the correspondence he received from Umar, making it difficult for him to determine which instructions were most recent. This report convinced Umar of the need to introduce an era for Muslims. After debating the issue with his counselors, he decided that the first year should be the year of Muhammad's arrival at Medina, known as Yathrib, before Muhammad's arrival. Uthman then suggested that the months begin with Muharram, in line with the established custom of the Arabs at that time. The years of the Islamic calendar thus began with the month of Muharram in the year of Muhammad's arrival at the city of Medina, even though the actual emigration took place in Safar and Rabi'ah of the intercalated calendar, 2 months before the commencement of Muharram in the new fixed calendar. Because of the Hijra, the calendar was named the Hijri calendar. Shamsi 1984 postulated that the Arabic calendar was never intercalated. According to him, the first day of the first month of the new fixed Islamic calendar 1 Muharram AH1 was no different from what was observed at the time. The day the Prophet moved from Mecca to Medina was originally 26 Rabi'ah on the pre-Islamic calendar. 1 Muharram of the new fixed calendar corresponded to Friday, 16 July 622 CE, the equivalent civil tabular date same daylight period in the Julian calendar. The Islamic day began at the preceding sunset on the evening of 15 July. This Julian date 16 July was determined by medieval Muslim astronomers by projecting back in time their own tabular Islamic calendar, which had alternating 30 and 29-day months in each lunar year plus 11 leap days every 30 years. For example, al-Biruni mentioned this Julian date in the year 1000 CE. Although not used by either medieval Muslim astronomers or modern scholars to determine the Islamic epoch, the thin crescent moon would have also first become visible, assuming clouds did not obscure it shortly after the preceding sunset on the evening of 15 July, 1.5 days after the associated dark moon astronomical new moon on the morning of 14 July. Though Michael Cook and Patricia Crone in their book Hadaism cite a coin from AH-17, the first surviving attested use of a Hijri calendar date alongside a date in another calendar Coptic is on a papyrus from Egypt in AH-22, PERF 558. Now, let's redirect our focus towards astronomical considerations and discover its significance in our narrative. Due to the Islamic calendar's reliance on certain variable methods of observation to determine its month start dates, these dates sometimes vary slightly from the month start dates of the astronomical lunar calendar, which are based directly on astronomical calculations. Still, the Islamic calendar seldom varies by more than 3 days from the astronomical lunar calendar system, and roughly approximates it. Both the Islamic calendar and the astronomical lunar calendar take no account of the solar year in their calculations, and thus both of these strictly lunar-based calendar systems have no ability to reckon the timing of the 4 seasons of the year. In the astronomical lunar calendar system, a year of 12 lunar months is 354.37 days longitude. In this calendar system, lunar months begin precisely at the time of the monthly conjunction, when the moon is located most directly between the Earth and the Sun. The month is defined as the average duration of a revolution of the moon around the Earth, 29.53 days. By convention, months of 30 days and 29 days succeed each other, adding up over 2 successive months to 59 full days. This leaves only a small monthly variation of 44 minutes to account for, which adds up to a total of 24 hours, i.e., the equivalent of 1 full day in 2.73 years. To settle accounts, it is sufficient to add 1 day every 3 years to the lunar calendar, in the same way that one adds 1 day to the Gregorian calendar every 4 years. The technical details of the adjustment are described in tabular Islamic calendar. The Islamic calendar, however, is based on a different set of conventions being used for the determination of the month start dates. Each month still has either 29 or 30 days, but due to the variable method of observations employed, there is usually no discernible order in the sequencing of either 29 or 30-day month lengths. Traditionally, the first day of each month is the day beginning at sunset of the first sighting of the Hilal crescent moon shortly after sunset. If the Hilal is not observed immediately after the 29th day of a month, either because clouds block its view or because the western sky is still too bright when the moon sets, then the day that begins at that sunset is the 30th. Such a sighting has to be made by one or more trustworthy men testifying before a committee of Muslim leaders. Determining the most likely day that the Hilal could be observed was a motivation for Muslim interest in astronomy, which put Islam in the forefront of that science for many centuries. Still, due to the fact that both lunar reckoning systems are ultimately based on the lunar cycle itself, both systems still do roughly correspond to one another, never being more than 3 days out of synchronization with one another. This traditional practice for the determination of the start date of the month is still followed in the overwhelming majority of Muslim countries. For instance, Saudi Arabia uses the sighting method to determine the beginning of each month of the Hijri calendar. Since AH 1419, several official Hilal sighting committees have been set up by the government to determine the first visual sighting of the lunar crescent at the beginning of each lunar month. Nevertheless, the religious authorities also allow the testimony of less experienced observers and thus often announce the sighting of the lunar crescent on a date when none of the official committees could see it. Each Islamic state proceeds with its own monthly observation of the new moon or, failing that, awaits the completion of 30 days before declaring the beginning of a new month on its territory. However, the lunar crescent becomes visible only some 17 hours after the conjunction, and only subject to the existence of a number of favorable conditions relative to weather, time, geographic location, as well as various astronomical parameters. Given the fact that the moon sets progressively later than the sun as one goes west, with a corresponding increase in its age since conjunction, Western Muslim countries may, under favorable conditions, observe the new moon 1 day earlier than Eastern Muslim countries. Due to the interplay of all these factors, the beginning of each month differs from one Muslim country to another during the 48-hour period following the conjunction. The information provided by the calendar in any country does not extend beyond the current month. A number of Muslim countries try to overcome some of these difficulties by applying different astronomy-related rules to determine the beginning of months. Thus, Malaysia, Indonesia, and a few others begin each month at sunset on the first day that the moon sets after the sun moonset after sunset. In Egypt, the month begins at sunset on the first day that the moon sets at least 5 minutes after the sun. A detailed analysis of the available data shows, however, that there are major discrepancies between what countries say they do on this subject and what they actually do. In some instances, what a country says it does is impossible. Due to the somewhat variable nature of the Islamic calendar, in most Muslim countries, the Islamic calendar is used primarily for religious purposes, while the solar-based Gregorian calendar is still used primarily for matters of commerce and agriculture. As we progress through this video, let's now turn our gaze towards theological considerations. If the Islamic calendar were prepared using astronomical calculations, Muslims throughout the Muslim world could use it to meet all their needs, the way they use the Gregorian calendar today. But there are divergent views on whether it is licit to do so. A majority of theologians oppose the use of calculations beyond the constraint that each month must be not less than 29 or more than 30 days on the grounds that the latter would not conform with Muhammad's recommendation to observe the new moon of Ramadan and Shawwal in order to determine the beginning of these months. However, some Islamic jurists see no contradiction between Muhammad's teachings and the use of calculations to determine the beginnings of lunar months. They consider that Muhammad's recommendation was adapted to the culture of the times and should not be confused with the acts of worship. Thus, the jurists Ahmad Muhammad Shakir and Yusuf al-Qaradawi both endorsed the use of calculations to determine the beginning of all months of the Islamic calendar in 1939 and 2004 respectively. So did the Fiqh Council of North America FCNA in 2006 and the European Council for Fatwa and Research ECFR in 2007. The major Muslim associations of France also announced in 2012 that they would henceforth use a calendar based on astronomical calculations, taking into account the criteria of the possibility of crescent sighting in any place on Earth. But, shortly after the official adoption of this rule by the French Council of the Muslim Faith CFCM in 2013, the new leadership of the association decided, on the eve of Ramadan 2013, to follow the Saudi announcement rather than to apply the rule just adopted. This resulted in a division of the Muslim community of France, with some members following the new rule and others following the Saudi announcement. Ismaili Tabi boroughs having the institution of Di al-Mutlaq follow the tabular Islamic calendar. See section below, prepared on the basis of astronomical calculations from the days of Fatimid imams. Welcome to the next segment, where we explore Islamic calendar of Turkey and its significance in our journey. Turkish Muslims use an Islamic calendar which is calculated several years in advance by the Turkish Presidency of Religious Affairs Diyanet İşleri Bakanlığı. From 1 Muharram 1400 AH 21 November 1979 until 29 Zilhijjah 1435 24 October 2014, the computed Turkish lunar calendar was based on the following rule. The lunar month is assumed to begin on the evening when, within some region of the terrestrial globe, the computed center of the lunar crescent at local sunset is more than above the local horizon and geocentrically more than from the sun. In the current rule, the computed lunar crescent has to be above the local horizon of Ankara at sunset. Get ready for a captivating exploration as we unravel the layers of Saudi Arabia's al-Qamar calendar and their profound significance. Saudi Arabia has traditionally used the al-Qamar calendar, which is based on astronomical calculations, for administrative purposes. The parameters used in the establishment of this calendar underwent significant changes during the decade to AH 1423. Before AH 1420, before 18 April 1999, if the moon's age at sunset in Riyadh was at least 12 hours, then the day ending at that sunset was the first day of the month. This often caused the Saudis to celebrate holy days 1 or even 2 days before other predominantly Muslim countries, including the dates for the Hajj, which can only be dated using Saudi dates because it is performed in Mecca. From AH, if moonset occurred after sunset at Mecca, then the day beginning at that sunset was the first day of a Saudi month, essentially the same rule used by Malaysia, Indonesia, and others except for the location from which the hill was observed. Since the beginning of AH 1423 16 March 2002, The rule has been clarified a little by requiring the geocentric conjunction of the sun and moon to occur before sunset, in addition to requiring moonset to occur after sunset at Mecca. This ensures that the moon has moved past the sun by sunset, even though the sky may still be too bright immediately before moonset to actually see the crescent. In 2007, the Islamic Society of North America, the Fiqh Council of North America and the European Council for Fatwa and Research announced that they would henceforth use a calendar based on calculations using the same parameters as the al-Qamar calendar to determine well in advance the beginning of all lunar months and therefore the days associated with all religious observances. This was intended as a first step on the way to unify, at some future time, Muslims' calendars throughout the world. On 14 February 2016, Saudi Arabia adopted the Gregorian calendar for payment of the monthly salaries of government employees as a cost-cutting measure, while retaining the Islamic calendar for religious purposes. Our focus now turns to other calendars using the Islamic era, an important aspect of our discussion. The solar Hijri calendar is a solar calendar used in Iran which counts its years from the Hijra or migration of Muhammad from Mecca to Medina in 622 CE. As we enter this new phase, let's uncover the impact of tabular Islamic calendar on our broader topic. The tabular Islamic calendar is a rule-based variation of the Islamic calendar, in which months are worked out by arithmetic rules rather than by observation or astronomical calculation. It has a 30-year cycle with 11 leap years of 355 days and 19 years of 354 days. In the long term, it is accurate to 1 day in about 2,500 solar years or 2,570 lunar years. It also deviates up to about 1 or 2 days in the short term. Let's now venture into the realm of Kuwaiti algorithm and explore the fascinating intricacies it holds. Microsoft uses the Kuwaiti algorithm, a variant of the tabular Islamic calendar, to convert Gregorian dates to the Islamic ones. Microsoft claimed that the variant is based on a statistical analysis of historical data from Kuwait. However, it matches a known tabular calendar. Our focus now turns to notable dates, an important aspect of our discussion. Important dates in the Islamic Hijri year are Muharram, the Islamic New Year. 10 Muharram, day of Ashura. For both Shias and Sunnis, the martyrdom of Hussein ibn Ali, the grandson of Muhammad, and his followers. For Sunnis, the crossing of the Red Sea by Moses occurred on this day, along with many other significant events in the lives of prophets and that have to do with creation. 12 Rabi al-Awwal, Mawlid or birth of the Prophet for Sunnis. 17 Rabi al-Awwal, Mawlid for Shias. 27 Rajab, Isra and Mizra for the majority of Muslims. 15 Shazban, Mid-Shazban, or Night of Forgiveness. For Shiites, also the birthday of Muhammad al-Mahdi, the 12th Imam. 1 Ramadan, the first day of fasting in Islam. 27 Ramadan, start of the revelation of the Quran. The most probable day Muhammad received the first verses of the Quran. 17 Ramadan in Indonesia and Malaysia. Last third of Ramadan, which includes Laylat al-Qadr. Last Friday of Ramadan, Jumat al-Wida. 1 Shawwal, Eid al-Fitr. Du al-Hayya, the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. 9 Du al-Hayya, day of Arafah. 10 Du al-Hayya, Eid al-Adha. Days considered important predominantly for Shia Muslims. Rabi al-Awwal, Al-Markoshan Mata al-Fakfi avenged the events of Ashura. 13 Rajab, birthday of Ali ibn Abi Talib. 3 Shazban, birthday of Hussein ibn Ali. 21 Ramadan, martyrdom of Ali ibn Abi Talib. 18 Du al-Hayya, the Eid al-Gadha. Get ready to uncover the mysteries surrounding uses as we navigate its intriguing terrain. The Islamic calendar is now used primarily for religious purposes and for official dating of public events and documents in Muslim countries. Because of its nature as a purely lunar calendar, it cannot be used for agricultural purposes, and historically Islamic communities have used other calendars for this purpose. The Egyptian calendar was formerly widespread in Islamic countries, and the Iranian calendar and the 1789 Ottoman calendar, a modified Julian calendar, were also used for agriculture in their countries. In the Levant and Iraq, the Aramaic names of the Babylonian calendar are still used for all secular matters. In the Maghreb, Berber farmers in the countryside still use the Julian calendar for agrarian purposes. These local solar calendars have receded in importance with the near-universal adoption of the Gregorian calendar for civil purposes. Saudi Arabia uses the lunar Islamic calendar. In Indonesia, the Javanese calendar combines elements of the Islamic and pre-Islamic Sega calendars. British author Nicholas Hager writes that after seizing control of Libya, Muammar Gaddafi declared on 1 December 1978 that the Muslim calendar should start with the death of the Prophet Muhammad in 632 rather than the Hijra, Muhammad's emigration from Mecca to Medina in 622. This put the country 10 solar years behind the standard Muslim calendar. However, according to the 2006 Encyclopedia of the Developing World, more confusing still is Gaddafi's unique Libyan calendar, which counts the years from the Prophet's birth, or sometimes from his death. The months July and August, named after Julius and Augustus Caesar, are now Nasser and Hannibal respectively. Reflecting on a 2001 visit to the country, American reporter Neil McFarlane observed, "Life in Libya was so unpredictable that people weren't even sure what year it was. The year of my visit was officially 1369. But just 2 years earlier Libyans had been living through 1429. No one could quite name for me the day the count changed, especially since both remained in play." Event organizers threw up their hands and put the Western year in parentheses somewhere in their announcements. Let's now venture into the realm of computer support and explore the fascinating intricacies it holds. Hijri support was available in later versions of traditional Visual Basic and is also available in Finite framework. Since the release of Java 8, the Islamic calendar is supported in the new date and time API. With the groundwork laid, let's now examine open-source calendar converters and its connections to our previous discussions. Calendar Catrib inventions. Remember to follow me on social media for behind-the-scenes content and updates.